Tony Kornheiser. Why is everyone reporting that I'm Russian? There's no collusion here, people. I am more aerodynamic. Wilbon, tell the people how you know that I am more aerodynamic.
Because you did not drop like a stone after you'd taken those pills.
That's right.
When we flew to Atlanta Friday. By the way, you know, a lot of us call you behind your back Sergey. I'm just saying, you might not have known that, but we do.
How was I on the flight? How was
good.
Okay.
A minimum of drugs, no screaming, no crying.
Did I
You didn't
chat?
go to the cockpit, and then
No.
there was
Did
no
I
red
chat?
wine.
I chatted.
No wine.
No,
amazing.
No, you can't mix that with pills. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Sweet 16 is set. Gronk retires, and the NFL reconsiders the onside kick. But we begin today with the great escape of Duke's overall number one seeded team from the clutches of Central Florida yesterday. This is, so far, the greatest game of the tournament. And Central Florida was just one slightly overspinning tip-in away from recording one of the great NCAA upsets ever. Wilbon, do you now think more or less of Duke after this game?
I don't think more. I don't think less. I think more of Zion Williamson. Because, I mean, he is a man. The plays he made were NBA plays at the end of that game where you had to get yourself to the line or score.
Yeah.
He did them both. Tony, I think more of Williamson. I think he likes to be coached, which I wish certain other superstars in the NBA right now would take that attitude of gotten it somewhere, loving to be coached hard, because he does. But my thoughts are with Johnny Dawkins. I covered the ACC and a lot of Duke games, and Johnny Dawkins is from Washington, D.C., where we live. I've known him all his life, Tony, all his adult life, and then some. I felt for him. He helped put Mike Krzyzewski on the map.
Yes.
When Duke was considering getting rid of Mike Krzyzewski early on in his career when he hadn't done much yet, he and Allery and Billis and Tommy Amaker, they are like Mike Krzyzewski's sons.
Yes.
And so people can say, well, why was he so emotional? Because he beat his kid in a game he believes his own son, who coached for him on that bench as an assistant, deserved to win more than he did. I care more about that than I care about the actual result.
So I'm going to deal with the actual results since you did not, and everything you said I agree with. They love each other. You could tell they loved each other in the postgame in the embrace. There's no question about that. I now think more of Duke, and I want to be very clear about this. I think more of Duke than I did before because they won that game. There was every reason for them not to win that game. Zion Williamson managed to foul the big fella out, okay, on a play that was absolutely necessary. R.J. Barrett managed to get an offensive rebound and put it back in. Someone wins and someone loses, and they won. We have, you and I, covered 25 to 30 of these things together. And in most cases, Mike, the team that ends up winning the tournament has one very scary, one very close game.
That's right.
I think this was Duke's game. I'm not saying that I always pick them to win. I'm not saying this propels them, but I'm saying that by winning that game, I now do think more of them.
Tony, I understand why you would think more of them in terms of people talk about character and will and a bunch of stuff they usually have no idea about. And I can see all those things coming through and Duke evolving with these young kids to a point where they weren't 2 weeks ago. I'll give you all that. Zion Williamson, I know the other guys chipped in, and they made plays when they needed them. But, man,
57
when they were
points in 2
done,
games.
Zion Williamson made those plays.
Yeah.
NBA plays.
Yeah.
NBA plays, Tony. Physical. Took the punishment, got the ball to the rim. I'm impressed with him even more. Tony, there are some teams that had a lot easier first weekend than Duke. Virginia, Tennessee, even North Carolina all had anxious moments in at least one game. Top seed in the West, Gonzaga, and third seed in the Midwest, Houston, were among the few teams that enjoyed back-to-back blowouts. So, Tony, which team has been the most impressive so far to you?
Okay, so I am right where I want to be in this tournament. I said repeatedly on this show that I only thought there were 5 or 6 teams that could win it. I said repeatedly I thought we were going to see a very chalky tournament. This is what we have so far. The 5 that I named repeatedly were Duke, Virginia, North Carolina, Michigan State, and Michigan. And I am now going to add a 6th, and that is Gonzaga. It is very possible that I actually underrated Gonzaga. I know they didn't have to play great teams in this tournament, but they look like a very, very good team right now. There's one other team that I will mention, and I'll bring up a phone call that you and I had that I'm very impressed with, at least over the last 3 quarters or 3 halves, and that's Virginia, because it looked like they were going out to Gardner-Webb. And had they gone out, what you said to me on the phone was, Look, I love Tony Bennett. They got to fire the coach. They got to suspend the program. This is so
emotional.
terrible that's
I'm glad it didn't happen, obviously.
Yeah.
It was overly emotional, but Tony, the number of people saying that to each other and others and to themselves was insane because it would have been a loss of such painful nature. You can't stand it. Okay, so it didn't happen good. Tony Bennett and that team, I think, are right back on track now.
Me too.
I think that Virginia's better off for having win that first game that way. Michigan State, as you know, who I have winning, and Duke, those teams are all as impressive. Tony, there's no Cinderella. And you needed a Cinderella. Central Florida would have been that team if that tip-in goes through for young Dawkins. But, Tony, how about Oregon? I mean, are we going to mention Oregon here? Oregon's a big conference school that has had success in a recent Final Four team. Are we just ignoring them? Do they have no extra appeal?
No, Mike. Here's what has happened in this tournament. People put their big boy pants on. In the 16 that are left, you have 14 teams, including Oregon, from Power 5 conferences. You have Gonzaga, which is a traditional power, a recent number one seeded team. And you have Houston, which won a league that was a 4-bid league. You've got real teams in here at this point, which they're no Loyolas. You don't see this all the time. I'm convinced that the best teams are now in this. And now, Mike, to me, it becomes a slugfest.
Let me ask you this.
Thursday and Friday are great, but that stuff's off the table now. It's off the table.
Tony, to me, I don't disagree with any of that. To me, the tournament is not as appealing when you don't have it. When you had Loyola last year.
I'm all right with it. No, I'm all right with it.
You can be all right with it, but you're not going to tell me that most people don't like to have a Cinderella when they check into this tournament a couple of times.
4 number ones, 4 number twos, 4 number threes, 2 number fours.
You're such a big city guy. Mr. New York, you got to have big power teams. You don't like Cinderella.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The last Cinderella was from Chicago, okay?
That's right.
Then there are teams in there now from smaller. Stop with this. Rob Gronkowski, just 29 years old, announced his retirement yesterday on Instagram with just enough grammatical mistakes to persuade you that he wrote it himself. There is talk of him going into acting. There is talk of him going into wrestling. Wilbon, do you think this retirement will stick? And how will you remember Gronk as a player?
He's going to go into the huddle. He'll go into somebody else's huddle. He said, or as Drew Rosenhaus has already said, if Brady calls him, it's not Brady's call that will determine whether he goes into the New England huddle. It'll be Bill Belichick's call, but somebody's going to call him. I don't believe this retirement's going to stick at all. I believe Gronk will be in somebody's huddle by mid-October. He doesn't want to do this. I know he's been beat up. If he wanted to stick with it, I would applaud him. I'd like to hug him. The guy is a first-team Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. But Tony, I don't believe this is going to stick, and I can't believe you do either.
When he is healthy in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, he was the best position player in all of football. He's absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just want to read you some of his numbers on big games. Just big games, Mike. Playoff games. He played 16 playoff games. That's a full NFL season. 81 catches, 1,163 yards, 12 touchdowns. Put his feet in the end zone 12 times.
Only Jerry Rice. That's Jerry Rice number.
Okay, Jerry Rice is first. He's second. Jerry Rice had 29 playoff games. Yeah. Gronk had 16 playoff games. So he's in the Hall of Fame. Do I think that this will stick? I disagree with you on this one part. I don't think Belichick will ever call. I think Brady might.
No, I said Belichick's not going to call either. He'll be somewhere else.
I don't think he's going to call. I think if he goes back, he'll go back to the Patriots. Brady's got to look at Edelman and Gronkowski and realize that if he loses both of them, those are his main guys. It would not surprise me if Brady called. It wouldn't surprise me if Gronkowski went back. But I don't think.
Wait a minute, you just said Belichick's not going to call.
No,
if Belichick ain't calling, he ain't going.
No, Brady will persuade something
Brady's
to
call
happen.
ain't the call.
Well, I'm not sure he's going to be back. He's got a great brand. I think he gives it a couple of years to see if he can become the Rock, something like that. I think that's possible.
You know what? If he makes as much money as The Rock, he won't need pro football. I tell you that.
29 years old. He's just 29. Wow.
He's got that appeal. He's got the Rock's appeal. I don't know about that.
He might. He could be a sidekick to the Rock.
Different kind of a pool.
He might.
A lot of beefcake. There's other NFL news breaking here in the desert, Tony. And I'm wondering if members of the competition committee of the NFL suffered collective sunstroke the Denver Broncos officially are proposing a substitute strategy to the onside kick consisting of a 4th and 15 play from one's own 35-yard line. It could only be employed once a game and only in the fourth quarter, and the committee supports the Broncos' proposal by a 7-1 vote. Only the Giants' John Mara dissented, saying, quote, "What are we, the Arena Football League?" Close quote. Amen to John Mara. Tony, please don't tell me you want any part of this junk.
Absolute shout out to John Mara for a fabulous quote. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I'm going to go the other way from you. I actually like this, and there are two reasons I like it. One is because I think it's an exciting play, and it sort of conjures up Eli Manning to David Tyree or something like that if you can make that happen. More importantly, I really do like the onside kick, which is you can still employ it anytime you want to employ it. But the defenses are so good now that it only works 7.5% of the time.
That's because they changed the rule. It's not because defenses are any better.
So to me,
go back to the old rule.
This is an alternative that I like, and I'll pose the question for you this way. Let's say you have Tom Brady. Let's say you have Aaron Rodgers. Let's say you have Pat Mahomes. Let's say you have Lamar Jackson, and you're facing this 4th and 15 play. Do you really want to see a kicker dribble the ball a few times, or do you want to let your quarterback see what he can do in a must-win situation? Maybe he can draw a penalty, a holding penalty, a pass interference penalty.
That's all they're going to give him. They're going to reward every guy you just said except Lamar Jackson.
Why? He can
all
run
the Golden Boys. They're going to reward him with that junk. Tony, this is manufactured junk. If this happened in basketball, your head would explode.
Mike?
If they put some fraudulent rule in to try to increase scoring, try to give a distinct advantage to certain players in the league. This is a fraud, and John Mara is to be hugged as often as possible.
I have one thing to say to you. The great revolution in basketball, the sport you love the most, came from the ABA, not the NBA.
It was in there. It's been in there for 40 years. What are you talking about?
Shot. This is a great innovation that is already being employed, I believe, by the AF. And I think this is good. Let's take a break.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Coming up, Ja Morant, he's out of the tournament. But did he make a case to be the #1 overall pick?
The tournament would be better if he was in it. And are the Hurricanes pushing their celebrations too far?
I like this idea of 4th and 15, one and done. I like it.
You just want to see Golden Boy quarterbacks on the field. That's all you care about. You don't care about the game anymore.
Lamar Jackson.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz.